And now, your daily dose of debate, breaking news, and uncensored views. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth. A great day to cite one of the great musicals that has been prepared by Broadway years ago and is still cherished. Tonight won't be just any night. Tonight is the night that President Trump's going to have fun. President Donald Trump is set to address the nation on Thursday night. That would be tonight. On topics he said will include, are you ready? Hold on to your seats. This is exciting because the president's going to tell you everything you've always wanted to know about voting machines and elections, suggesting that he is likely, I would actually say certain, to revisit some of the unproven claims he has previously made about Republican losses, particularly his own loss in 2020. Okay, can we just get something clear here entirely? Is that anyone who is, I don't know, I have a kind of respect for elementary school kids. So let's say someone who is above sixth grade knows that President Trump lost the election in 2020, and that's how we got 4 years that weren't particularly great years from Joe Biden, who won the election. Trump's fixation on his loss to Democrat Joe Biden 6 years ago and the long debunked theories he circulated about it are something he still brings up regularly, not just regularly, incessantly. So the AP is understating it, that he brings up regularly, they write, when discussing other subjects, but elevating the deeply political and conspiratorial topics to a presidential primetime address underscores the lengths to which Trump has used his second term to both blow past norms and fixate on old grievances. The idea of blowing past and then fixating at the same time, this is not a healthy situation. It also raises all kinds of questions. The networks apparently are giving him time, an hour or so, to deliver this monumental speech. And yes, it is newsworthy because he's been talking about it so intensely. And he says this is going to be big news. It's going to be gigantic news. But isn't this really like the equivalent of a paid campaign announcement or some kind of advertisement? But no one's paying for it, to the best of my knowledge. This is being treated simply as a newsworthy event. Why is it newsworthy at this point in his presidency when we're leading up to a very important, very significant midterm election coming up this November? Why is this suddenly newsworthy that President Trump is going to go back to try to revisit the election of 2020? Who knows? The AP reports Trump has offered only vague details about the address scheduled for 9 p.m. tonight. When asked by a reporter yesterday if it would concern election machines and integrity, Trump said it would concern that subject, and we'll have a couple of other things to say also. He went on to say that he has really big news, and that our country has to shape up. The country has to shape up, and President Trump is an example of that. Okay, but that's what we're going to be talking about Thursday, he added. It doesn't get bigger because without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. Ouch. We're going to be talking to Charlie Cook later in this program, who is one of the most distinguished public opinion analysts in the country. And part of what we hope to talk about is this going to help the Republicans win the midterm elections that determine who controls governorships, who controls the Senate, who controls the House? Or is this going to inadvertently end up helping Democrats flip control? We will be speaking about that later with Charlie Cook. Meanwhile, there is more. The Dispatch is reporting that Trump's nominee for Director of National Intelligence, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, testified at his confirmation hearing yesterday, during which he faced questions about election security. Clayton, who would replace the acting DNI Bill Pulte, who replaced temporarily Tulsi Gabbard when she left her post. If Clayton, if confirmed, refused to say that Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election, only saying that Biden was certified as president. In his appearance before the Senate Intelligence Committee, Clayton also faced questioning over previous claims that he had made about election integrity and whether a White House official had ever asked him to subpoena several New York Times journalists in an alleged national security investigation. Clayton subpoenaed 4 Times reporters the previous Friday, ordering them before a Manhattan grand jury on Wednesday, the same day as his own hearing, over their reporting that Trump's new Air Force One, a gift from Qatar, lacked missile defense systems that its predecessor carried. Now, the idea that this is some kind of massive state secret that threatens the security of the United States, that takes a bit of arguing and proving. On yesterday's hearing, President Trump's nominee to lead the U.S. intelligence community, the Director of National Intelligence, an important job, Jay Clayton, faced intense grilling from Democrats during his Senate Intelligence Committee confirmation hearing yesterday. Key moments and controversies from the hearing included the 2020 election. Why is that a key issue right now? Clayton repeatedly declined to state outright that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. Instead, he utilized the standard administration line that Biden was certified and explicitly stated he is not an election denier. So why can't you, if you're not an election denier, simply say, yeah, Joe Biden won the thing? He also talked about journalist subpoenas. Democratic senators pressed Clayton, who is currently the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, over his recent signing of subpoenas to New York Times reporters regarding leaks about a new Qatari-gifted presidential plane. Election interference probes. Jon Ossoff, the Democrat from Georgia, who is stirring presidential prospects. Coming up, we'll play some of the audio. He repeatedly pressed Clayton on whether it was appropriate to oversee domestic search warrants at sensitive election facilities, an inquiry that Clayton avoided answering. But we'll get to answers and answer avoidance and much more on this busy day right here on the Medved Show. Just to get it clear, there are 2 different meetings going on, 2 different testimonies being provided by controversial appointees that President Trump has named to key positions in law enforcement and in national security. Jay Clayton has been nominated to take over from Bill Pulte, who has no experience in national security at all. But Jay Clayton has been nominated to take over the position of Director of National Intelligence, the position that Tulsi Gabbard once held, until it turned out she was not in line with the war on Iran or other White House decisions. And the other issue has to do with Pam Bondi's former job. She was dumped partially because of her handling of the Epstein files. But then they put in Todd Blanche, who was a former personal attorney for Donald Trump. And he is also facing confirmation, making him the real full-time attorney general rather than just somebody acting in that capacity. And both of these nominations are going to be close votes to get confirmation. A key Republican whose yes vote could be needed and probably will be needed to advance Todd Blanche's nomination as Attorney General. That key Republican said yesterday that he said it today, that Blanche needs to meet with victims of Jeffrey Epstein before this particular senator would be in favor of President Donald Trump's choice for Attorney General. Remember, part of what killed the service and the career of Pam Bondi was she gave a statement that she had sitting on her desk a list of clients of Jeffrey Epstein. She had a whole list of people who were involved with dubious behavior concerning Jeffrey Epstein and his sexual offenses. And that piece of paper didn't exist. She had just said it. And it ended up terminating early her service as Attorney General. So now Tom Tillis, who is leaving the Senate, he is serving out his last few weeks as a United States Senator from North Carolina, says that while he is positively disposed toward Todd Blanche, he hasn't made a final decision on the nomination. This is a very important part of getting to yes, Tillis said during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing today. There should not be any reason why, based on what Mr. Blanche said yesterday, if he said that he would do it today, then he can certainly do it over the next 2 weeks. Do what? Meet with some of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. That's very important to Senator Tillis. Blanche was willing to say that he would meet with them and counsel. I understand the restriction that counsel has to be present, Tillis said today. I expect that meeting to occur before I'm willing to vote this out of committee. And I'm trying to get to yes. When somebody says he's trying to get to yes, the chances are he will. But that may not be enough. There is all kinds of question about the situation with Todd Blanche and his nomination. And meanwhile, there is also this from the Dispatch. In a fifth continuous day of bombing strikes, the U.S. launched more strikes against Iran yesterday and this morning, Thursday morning, with yesterday's strikes aimed at Iranian targets used to threaten vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, according to U.S. Central Command. Iranian state media said American planes hit areas around Tehran and in Semnan province, home to Iran's ballistic missile and space programs, earlier this morning. Yesterday, U.S. forces fired on Curacao-flagged tanker Belma as it tried to reach Karg Island in violation of the American blockade, disabling the vessel in the first enforcement action since Trump reinstated our blockade. Iranian state media claimed that Iran fired missiles at American military facilities in the region yesterday, and that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps threatened to close all other export corridors beyond the Strait of Hormuz that benefit the U.S. and its allies. Analysts say Iran could use its Houthi allies in Yemen to close the Bab al-Mandab gateway to the Red Sea, another crucial energy route. And how are things going? Well, the New York Times has a big op-ed that basically says that the U.S. and Iran are on the verge of a forever war. Does that have an encouraging sound to it? Perpetual conflicts result when each side treats its own escalations as acts of defense. They conclude the commentary by Ali Vaez, who is a director of the Iran project of the International Crisis Group, by saying that the lesson here is not simply that diplomacy failed. It is that Washington and Tehran treated the memorandum, that was a memorandum of understanding that was supposed to be basis for a ceasefire, not as a bridge from war to diplomacy, but as an extension of war by other means. If they allow even this modest understanding to disappear, the next ceasefire will become merely the pause before the next battle. And war, rather than diplomacy, could well become the permanent condition. But meanwhile, the president isn't going to be distracted by anything as minor as the prospect of a forever war, because he's going to be speaking about voting machines in the 2020 election that he lost by 7 million votes. What a position we're in. There'll be more on a crucial and one-sided vote in the House on the question of aid to Israel. That and more coming up on the Medved Show. A major breakthrough up on Capitol Hill. I mean, really major, dramatic, historic. The Jay Clayton, who is the nominee to become Director of National Intelligence and is facing questioning by the Senate committee before the vote for confirmation goes to the full Senate. Jay Clayton has come to a historic realization. He now acknowledges that Joe Biden not only served as president, he actually won the presidency in 2020. It's a major breakthrough. This was after earlier interrogation by the Senate committee in which Jay Clayton couldn't reach that conclusion. But this time, under questioning by Senator Warner of Virginia, he reached the bracing and refreshing waters of truth. Here is clip 20.
Do you deny that Joe Biden won the 2020 election?
Senator, I'm not an election denier. Joe Biden was certified as the president of the United States.
Election denial is something we cannot have. So I will take that as you do not deny that Joe Biden won the 2020 election.
Yeah, I'm not. I think, let me just be clear. We have substantial work to do, and I've made it in improving our electoral processes. It's part of national security, and I feel strongly about that.
We're coming into election season. I want to make sure you are on the record. If confirmed, you will commit you will not interfere with or comment inappropriately on U.S. elections.
Senator, you outlined the role correctly. The role is to deal with foreign interference in U.S. elections, which is something I'm gravely concerned about. But that's the role.
This may be viewed by President Trump, who is preparing for his big speech tonight, as a disloyal answer. And why it is so difficult for Jay Clayton to say that Biden won, period, full stop, no ifs, ands, or buts. Biden won, and to prove it, he's writing a book about his presidency, or at least his aides are helping him write a book. Biden will publish memoir. It'll come out after the midterms because it probably wouldn't help Democratic chances at all to have people who are fascinated by the deterioration of Joe Biden while he was president. I'm not sure that it makes for a bestseller. We'll see. Meanwhile, a previous interrogation of Jay Clayton, the nominee for Director of National Intelligence, was vigorously pursued not by Senator Warner this time, but by Senator Jon Ossoff, who is an interesting figure. He is a Democratic senator from Georgia. He's facing re-election. That's one of the closest and most competitive races in the country that will determine control of the Senate. And people are saying that Jon Ossoff has been such an effective candidate, an effective senator, that even though he's only had one full term in the U.S. Senate, people are considering him as a presidential possibility. Here he is interrogating fairly intensely, I think you could say, Jay Clayton, the nominee for DNI, Director of National Intelligence. Clip 19.
It's a simple question, Mr. Clayton.
And I've answered.
Who won the 2020 presidential election?
I've answered it.
You're here asking for the support of senators to lead America's intelligence community. We've established that you have an obligation to be honest and forthright with this committee and with the American public, but you refuse to answer a simple matter of fact about the 2020 election. Is that right?
No, that's not right.
Then answer the question. Who won the 2020 election?
I have answered the question.
Answer it. What is your answer?
I've given you my answer.
What is your answer? You refuse to answer a basic question about who won a presidential election, but you asked to lead America's intelligence community? Isn't it humiliating to be unable to answer this question, to have to indulge the president's delusions? We know, you know, everybody in this room knows the truthful answer to that question. Why can you not give it?
I think I gave you the answer.
Okay, so why not repeat the answer? And the answer that he's attempting to peddle off is not yes or no, Biden won the election. It's not who won the election. It's that Joe Biden was certified as the winner. Okay, which is very different because part of what Trump has been saying, and what is particularly shocking about this is what's very clear is that Jay Clayton is worried that Trump would withdraw his nomination. That if he says, yeah, Joe Biden won this thing and no more to say about it, if he gave a direct, clear, unequivocal answer, it could be the end of his possibility as the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence. Mark Kelly, a senator from Arizona, also questioned Jay Clayton's ability to disagree with Trump after asking him who won the 2020 election. This is clip 18 with Senator Kelly.
Can you tell me why Joe Biden was certified as the winner of the 2020 election?
I really, going back to my constitutional law here, but I don't want to continue to have debate about this, but I believe he had the most electoral votes.
So he won the election.
He followed our process, had the most electoral votes, was declared the winner. And
who has the most electoral votes? Is it the person that wins or the person that loses?
I think that's your characterization. I'm not going to continue to do
The reason
this.
why we struggle with this, and I think it's especially important in the job you're nominated for, is because it seems that folks who are nominated for these positions just fundamentally refuse to disagree with something the president says.
And there is more questions of that nature. Senator Ossoff came back to ask about the President of the United States pardoning a convicted narco trafficker. And this is another question that's fairly difficult for Jay Clayton to come to terms on. And then there is also the New York Times, not a column, but an editorial by the New York Times editorial board. And yes, they are partisan. They lean toward the Democrats and toward the left. But they have a piece that says Senate Republicans face a new ethics test. Senate Republicans, Blanche should be disciplined, not confirmed to lead the Justice Department. And okay, according to that analysis, what should he be disciplined for? And there's another nominee who's controversial or facing controversy, who actually I think deserves confirmation. Her name is Erica Schwartz. She's an admiral in the U.S. Navy and a medical doctor being appointed to the Center for Disease Control. We'll get to that as well on the Medved Show. One of the comments that has been made about the confirmation hearings for Jay Clayton to become the Director of National Intelligence, and it's an anonymous comment right now, unless somebody wants to claim it. The job is Director of Intelligence. How about trying some when you're answering questions from U.S. senators? Like Jon Ossoff, who was particularly aggressive, a Democrat from Georgia. He wanted to know whether the candidate to be Director of National Intelligence agreed that the President of the United States had pardoned a convicted narco trafficker. This is clip 17.
Is it the case in the Juan Orlando Hernandez case that the President of the United States pardoned a man who had worked with the Sinaloa cartel to facilitate massive narco trafficking into the United States?
I don't remember the specifics of that case.
He was convicted in your district.
He was convicted. Yeah. We convict a lot of people for a lot of drugs.
Convicted of narco trafficking, yes?
I believe so.
No, so at massive scale, yes?
Well, you're telling me what I know. That's kind of he was. I believe. Look, I'll take your word for it. He was a convicted narco trafficker.
Did the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, pardon a convicted narco trafficker?
I believe we just discussed that. The President provided a pardon, yes.
Yes or no? Did the President of the United States pardon a convicted narco trafficker?
Yes.
Okay. And a lack of explanation for why that was an appropriate pardon has to do with the fact that this narco trafficker agreed with President Trump on who won the election of 2020, or was it another reason? Joe Scarborough issued what he called an Orwellian warning on his television show. And here is former congressman, former Republican congressman, by the way, Joe Scarborough, clip 16.
To entertain the president's delusions, I mean, over an issue, Willie, that if you wanted to take judicial notice of who won that election, you could take judicial notice in any courtroom across America. There's 63 federal judges who said that Biden won it. You had the Supreme Court of the United States rejecting one Trump appeal after another, and even in one Pennsylvania case, saying that there were not enough votes to even swing Pennsylvania. You could just go on, but again, you have this man, this learned man, who again, more interested in the president's delusions about 2020 than telling the truth. And how can it not remind you? How can that sequence not remind people of George Orwell, who said, the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and your ears. And when I saw it, not to be melodramatic, but I thought of Hannah Arendt's The Origins of Totalitarianism, where she said the first goal of tyrants is to tear down the institutions that protect the society. And the way they do that, authoritarians, they do that by replacing competence with blind loyalty.
Profound, and it seems to me very appropriate. Most of those judges who helped decide the election integrity cases were appointed by Trump. There were people who were appointed by Trump during his first term, for goodness sake. And every state, all 50, including states where Trump won, at all of those states certified the election. The fact is, yes, Trump won a bunch of states, but he didn't win enough to win the electoral vote, and he didn't win the popular vote. He lost the electoral vote by more than 100 electoral votes. And his own vice president, a guy named Vance, who you may remember, has said, okay, President Trump, you lost, and yet we're going to be hearing about this again tonight, the chances are. And CNN's Ellie Honig had this to say about Trump's nominee for Director of National Intelligence, Jay Clayton, who is an even worse choice, it appears, than Tulsi Gabbard was. This is Ellie Honig on CNN, clip 15.
It goes to Jay Clayton's conception of what that job as DNI entails. And to be on site of a search warrant, to have the DNI there is completely out of place, is completely ridiculous. And I think that would have been the natural follow-up had he acknowledged that he remembered anything. And one other thing about Jay Clayton, I don't know him. He took over the U.S. Attorney's Office at SDNY a couple years after I left. But I know plenty of people there. And the reputation of Jay Clayton is that he's a chameleon, that he goes by to get by, he goes along to get along, that he lacks the backbone to stand up for that office. He's not as over-the-top offensive as some other folks we've seen in high positions at DOJ, but he's not deeply respected in that office right now, and tears were not shed when he was nominated for this job, if he gets it someday.
If he gets it someday. So that's a real question. This is, by the way, the commentary on the next hearing subject. The next hearing subject is Todd Blanche, who was nominated for not the top job in national intelligence, like DNI, Director of National Intelligence. He's nominated for an even more important job, one of the original cabinet posts, one of the first four that was appointed by George Washington. That's the Attorney General of the United States. And the New York Times suggests that Blanche should be disciplined, not confirmed. And they conclude their commentary this way. Republicans have shown that they can exert influence over Mr. Trump, congressional Republicans. It often takes only a modest number of them working with Democrats. Republicans ended Matt Gaetz's effort to become Attorney General. Remember that? After the 2024 election. They forced Mr. Trump's Justice Department last year to release the Epstein files. They focused Mr. Trump and Mr. Blanche to retreat, at least for now, from that planned $1.8 billion slush fund that would have benefited January 6th rioters. This week, Republicans, starting with Mr. Cornyn, senator from Texas, have an opportunity to prevent Mr. Blanche from doing further damage. Americans can be grateful that the Constitution still provides robust protection of personal liberty, but its words mean little if members of Congress do not stand up to dangerous presidential power grabs. And one of those power grabs involves Todd Blanche. And you'll hear some of what he sounded like in his confirmation hearings, including a complete loss of temper aimed at Senator Cory Booker. We will get to that. We will also get to a vote in Congress where every single Republican, except for Thomas Massie of Kentucky, every single Republican in the House voted to continue U.S. aid for our ally in the Middle East, the nation of Israel. But among Democrats, 98 Democrats, nearly half of the Democrats, voted to cut Israel off, still in the middle of the war, still confronting terrorism by Hezbollah and Hamas and Iran itself. Israel is being cut off, according to the Democrats voting in Congress, with half of them voting to cut off those votes, including a number of Democrats who historically have called themselves friends and supporters of Israel. We'll also talk about the House Republicans making one final go at advancing a reconciliation package. It's Reconciliation 3.0. That's a roughly $95 billion budget framework that would provide funding for defense, farm aid, and states to implement voter ID requirements in elections. We will get to that and to more as the controversies multiply and continue in this greatest nation on God's green earth.